2023 regular Board of Aldermen meeting. Would everybody please join with me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka.
Here.
Alderwoman Tice.
Here.
Alderman Weggie.
Here.
Alderwoman Sims.
Here.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Here.
Alderman Gould.
Here.
Alderwoman Harder.
Here.
Alderman Erger. All members are present.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is approval or amendment to the agenda. Are there any changes? Alderman Gould.
Yes, hang on one second real quick. I'd like to make a motion that we table old business 10A, bill number 6471, which is supposed to be your second reading tonight.
Can we get a second before you go to that? Can we get a second?
Second.
Okay.
The reason why is I'd like to have this taken back up at the Public Works Committee. We were never really able to bring this back over the summer to work through some of the details. And I think the committee still needs to kind of review some of these things because these are pretty big implications. So I'd like to work through that first, and then if it comes back out of there, then we can take it back up.
Have any other discussion? Do we need a roll call on that or just a voice vote? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Any other changes to the agenda? Seeing none, the agenda will be approved by acclamation as amended. Brings us down to announcements, appointments, proclamations, and recognitions. We have one item under that. That's by our police department. Major in Chief, come on down.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. We have three things we'd like to do this evening. The first one is Major Hawkins is going to introduce you to a new hire and give you a background on him.
All right, Officer DeMatteis, please come forward. I'd like to introduce Brian DeMatteis. Brian earned his bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Harris-Stowe State University in 2007. From 2007 to 2010, Brian worked as an intake officer with the St. Louis County Department of Justice Services. He decided he could not get enough. I ad-libbed that. That is not true. In 2011, Brian joined the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department and served as an officer in the 1st District for 12 years. Brian is engaged to his fiancée, Rose Marie, and in their spare time, both enjoy traveling on exciting adventures such as skydiving, diving and snorkeling with sharks, and trying to jump in front of trains. I also made that up. When not on the road, they spend their time at home with their dog, Cerberus. Brian began his career with the Brentwood Police Department this past July. Please join me in welcoming Brian.
Second, we'd like to recognize Nick Lang. Would you come forward, please? Nick was recently promoted to sergeant from the rank of corporal. Sergeant Lang graduated from Parkway North High School in 1992 and after enlisted in the United States Marine Corps in 1993 as an infantryman. While in the Marine Corps, Nick was stationed in California, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. And while in the Corps, he was promoted to the rank of corporal. After serving our country, Nick graduated from the St. Louis County Police Academy and worked as an officer for Crestwood for 2.5 years. He began his career with the Brentwood Police Department on January 7, 2007. During his time as a Brentwood officer, Nick has received several commendations, including for his dedication to the preservation of life and bravery of our citizens. He was awarded the McAtee Award for talking down a suicidal subject from the roof of our Metro garage. And in 2010, he was awarded the Medal of Valor from the Rock Hill Police Department when he assisted in the actions when Rock Hill officer Matt Crosby was shot and critically wounded in the line of duty. In 2021, Nick received a life-saving award for resuscitating the victim of a drowning at Van Markway Pool. Nick and his wife Rocio, who's in the audience, and their 3 beautiful children behind me here, have been married for 17 years. God love you, Rocio, for that one. Isabella, Zoe, and Madeline are their children. Glad that you can be with us. Congratulations, Sergeant. The next one is the introducing our newest officer, I guess you would say, and that's Officer Red Bull. Tim, can you come in, please? Hello, buddy. This is a long path, as all of you know, that it's a long path to get Red into the city of Brentwood, but he's here now. TJ Lockenick is the handler, so TJ will have the responsibility while Red is in service with us for the next few years. For a lot of training and a lot of expertise that goes into his job. I'd like to take 1 second to recognize some people in the back there, Steve and Marie, and one of our donors, Chip, is seated in the back. Without all 3 of those people, this would not happen, including all the people on the board that's part of our foundation. So thank you again to them. Red Bull is a little over a year old chocolate lab from the country of the Netherlands. Red Bull was purchased from Shallow Creek Kennels. It's in Pennsylvania, the top canine training facility in the United States. He was shipped to Pennsylvania in May of this year to begin his training. Red Bull is trained on narcotics detection to include cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamines. He is also trained in tracking people, so missing people, endangered people, and suspects. And he's also trained in article searches, so think evidence and things like that. Red Bull's commands are in Dutch. Red Bull and his handler TJ met in June and spent a month training together on various scenarios out in Pennsylvania. Red will be utilized in our parks and on patrol, as well as assisting neighboring agencies when they call for his specialty services. On Tuesday, August 15th, Red Bull and TJ were called out for a suspected car theft in progress here in Brentwood. And Red Bull led TJ right to a bush where he showed TJ the thieves had discarded a package of things they were using to break into cars. So he's off to a roaring start already. Congratulations and welcome to Red, and thank you to TJ.
Thank you.
Yeah, one last thing. Unfortunately, Officer Mundorf couldn't be with us tonight, but I'd like to mention that Seth Mundorf is our Officer of the Quarter. Seth was involved in 3 significant arrests off of self-initiated activity over the last quarter, and later we will recognize him with a plaque, and we can do that at our station. He wasn't able to be here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chief. And I'd just like to follow up on what the chief said. No, you're good. You're good. The 3 residents who helped out quite a bit on this, thank you so much. You know, as I like to say, the residents are our eyes and ears out there, and also they are the ones that are responsible for volunteering, giving their time. Without their efforts, we would not have Red Bull. So because of their direct action, their willingness to serve the community, this has been a tremendous success. So thank you to you 3. Brings us down to item 5, public hearing. We have 2 items. The first up is public hearing to set the 2023 ad valorem property tax rate. With that, I will gavel open the public hearing for the tax rate. Anybody in the public cares to address the board on that matter, now is the time to do so.
No one online.
No? All right. We will close the public hearing on that matter, and we will drop down to public hearing on the text amendments to Article 4, off-street parking and loading regulations to update the required parking for certain uses to be consistent with current industry standards as well as other technical standards. I will gavel open that public hearing.
Hi, Whitney Kelly on behalf of the City of Brentwood. Sorry about that. Can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Whitney Kelly on behalf of the city of Brentwood. Um, So
Thank
this
you.
is something that we wanted to look at the Planning and Zoning Commission about our current parking standards. And we had CBB, this is Mike Alvin, he can discuss his findings. We had CBB look at the parking requirements and compare them with industry standard in our comparator cities as well to see how we can lower them and so that it provides a more accurate parking count and we don't have too much surface parking. We also wanted to look at including a maximum parking rate. So we've included a 120% maximum parking rate. Above that, the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council can approve above that, provided there's a parking study to warrant such need by a professional traffic engineer. We can go through each one, but generally we were looking, it came out to be, we were actually lowering the restaurant uses by approximately 20% and some of the other uses by approximately 20%. So as a combination of all of those uses, that's where the traffic engineers felt most comfortable. The idea is that it would still provide sufficient parking for all of the uses without creating issues on the adjacent properties or neighboring properties, especially in residential areas. So Mike is here, he can present if y'all wish, or, okay.
Thank you for having me. Can you hear me? All right. My name is Mike Alban, Senior Transportation Planner at CBB. Staff reached out to us. So we completed this on an on-call contract. A handful of different things that we looked at, as Whitney kind of discussed already. I can kind of run through this pretty briefly, but what we kind of started looking at other communities in the area for comparison. Let me just pull up my notes real quick. Okay, so we kind of wanted to see, if certain types of buildings were built in Brentwood as well as a handful of other communities, including Clayton, Maplewood, Richmond Heights, University City, unincorporated St. Charles County, and unincorporated St. Louis County, how many parking stalls would a specific building be required to build in each of those different communities? And there were, we looked at 9, 10, 11 different types of uses here. I believe these are all in your packets, but they include multifamily dwellings and apartments, hotels and motels, indoor retail businesses, grocery stores and supermarkets, banking facilities, pet care facilities, restaurants, and bars and lounges. And to kind of give an overall summary, we found that, let me backtrack a little bit. We also compared this to best practices. So standards, the Urban Land Institute has done extensive research into the amount of parking that different land uses would need at a maximum in a variety of different cities all across the United States. And they have put together kind of a maximum that they think could be applied to pretty much any situation, any type of land use anywhere across the United States. So we compared that as well. So comparing against ULI and these neighboring communities, we often found that Brentwood was highest or among the higher communities for parking requirements. And so we didn't recommend lowering it to become one of the lowest ones, but kind of in the middle, in this little bit of a sweet spot there. So do you want me to kind of go through the changes, or what's best for you? Okay. Sure. Okay. And we're also proposing, like when you discussed a parking maximum of 120% of the minimum. Of course, there's, we find that different businesses kind of know the amount of parking that they need. So there's also a process for if they think they need more than 120%, they can have a parking study conducted by a professional transportation engineer to confirm those their parking requirements. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Sure. All right, thank you.
Thank you. No, I'm sorry. Anybody else in the public care to address this matter on the public hearing? If not, I will gavel close the public hearing portion of the meeting and move down to the citizen comments. And if anybody in the public cares to address the Board of Aldermen, now is the time to do so. You will be given up to 3 minutes. All we ask is that you come to the podium and state your name and your address. All right. We'll move down to mayor and alderman reports. First up is the mayor. The only thing I have to report is next weekend is our annual Brentwood Days event. It will once again be held in the what is now named the Brentwood Sports Complex. As always, it will begin on Friday night from 5 to 10, and it will resume then on Saturday following the parade. The parade is at 2 o'clock. And as always, we will have food vendors, there will be booths, there will be music, and culminates in fireworks on Saturday night. So it's a great opportunity to get out there and see some of your old friends, make new ones as well. And with that, that's it for the mayor's report. Alderman Plufka.
No report.
Alderwoman Tice.
I'll have a little sidebar publicly with the other aldermen in Ward 1. We typically have our ward meeting the second Tuesday of every other month, which would be next Tuesday, the 12th. And assuming that Alderman Plufka is available, we look forward to seeing everyone in the community center next week at 6:30 on Tuesday.
Thank you. Alderman Weggie.
Yeah, a couple public works things. So on Thursday, the 14th, right before Madden Fest, it's a great timing. There's going to be an open house about MSD, some major changes that they're proposing. I would highly recommend all citizens attend that and learn about what's going on. We had a special session of Public Works with MSD to understand this is a large project that's coming in 2026 or so. And as a result, we are rescheduling Public Works for the following week, so it'll be September 20th at 6 p.m. To make sure everybody can attend that open house. Again, I would encourage everybody to go to that. Thank you.
And when is that? You said it's right before or right after? What was that? What'd you call it?
Madden Fest?
Madden Fest?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's south of Highway 40 there.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Thank you. Alderwoman Sims.
After our summer hiatus, Ways and Means will be meeting at its regularly scheduled date on its regularly scheduled time, September the 7th, this Thursday. We will be discussing the 2024 budget and that budget process, so I hope to have and welcome strong citizen attendance on that. That's all.
Thank you. Alderman Lockmuller.
Report.
Alderman Gould.
Yes, our next Ward 3 meeting is scheduled for September 26th, but instead of what we've been communicating at each one of our ward meetings, being at 6:30, it's actually, we're gonna move it to 7 o'clock at the rec center. We need to shift it 30 minutes because of another conflict with another meeting. But so Ward 3 meeting at the rec center, September 26th at 7 p.m. The next Communications Committee meeting is September 19th at 6 p.m., assuming we'll have that. But that's when the next scheduled communications meeting will be.
Thank you. Alderwoman Harder.
No report.
And Alderman Erger.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Brings us down to item 8, City Administrator Report. City Administrator Akande. Oh, we got Craig instead.
Good evening, Craig Schluter with Navigate Building Solutions. I'll be providing the Brentwood Bound update. There were just a few expenses since the last Board of Aldermen meeting. First is construction costs, $4,750 was spent. Next is soft costs, $3,590 was spent on legal and Union Pacific fees. There were a lot of updates in the additional categories of funding. One exciting piece of news is MSD reimbursed the city of Brentwood for the MSD Hampton Creek project. So that was a large reimbursement, the largest one we've received to date. So that's exciting. Also, the MSD grant, this MSD reimbursed the city for that. Next, the East-West Gateway grant for Norm-West Park to Brentwood Park connection. The city received a reimbursement for the right-of-way costs on that. Next is the COP investment income to date. So since the 2019 COPs are no longer being invested as they're being spent, this item was moved from additional funding sources up to categories of funding, which provided some additional contingency. And then the last item, the MoDOT cost share for the GOG Connector Part B project. The Board of Aldermen approved this agreement on May 15th. That just went through DocuSign last week. And that was signed, it was set up in DocuSign by MoDOT, and it was signed by the city administrator. So now that's being executed by MoDOT as we speak. So that's a nearly $2 million grant that the project is finally seeing come to fruition. So that's exciting. Next, in additional funding sources, the EDST amounts, the 2022 is now an audited amount, so that's been updated. And then the projection for 2023 has been updated as well.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Craig? Not? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Brings us down to the consent agenda. Are there any questions or requests to remove any of the items off the consent agenda? If not, can we get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Alderman Weggie?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder?
Yes.
Alderman Erger?
Yes.
Motion carries by a vote of 8-0.
Great. Brings us down to old business, which I believe we don't have anything, right? That is correct. Okay. New business. We have 4 items. The first up is Bill number 6473. Can we get a first reading by title only, please, Mr. City Attorney?
Yes. Bill number 6473 for first reading, an ordinance establishing the rate of property tax to be levied for the year 2023 for general municipal purposes, police and fire retirement fund, and public library purposes.
Thank you. And who is presenting on this? Michelle?
Director of Finance. You had the notice of public hearing in your packets. That's normal and customary. This is the first reading. We don't have the post-BOEs from St. Louis County just yet, nor do we have the final approval from the auditor. You do need 2 readings in order to do that. By the second reading, we'll have all of those available, and your assessed values will be authorized and ready for consideration.
Okay.
Any immediate questions?
Great. Thank you, Michelle. Brings us down to Bill number 6474. Mr. City Attorney, can we have a first read by title only, please?
Yes. Bill number 6474, an ordinance to amend Article 4 off-street parking and loading regulations to update the required parking for certain uses to be consistent with current industry standards as well as other technical standards.
Thank you. Well, we've had this presentation. Do we have any questions? Alderman Gould.
I just have one question clarifying the maximum that you all are recommending putting in. Does that, so the maximum's putting in place that's the max that somebody can come to the city with plans for. If it exceeds that, then they have to go through a special conditional review. Is that correct?
Well, any of the buildings that a new building would come through requires Planning and Zoning Commission and Board of Aldermen approval anyway. So it would just be part of that review. If they want to do more than a maximum of 120%, they would need to provide a traffic engineer study outlining why they
reasons
need
why.
that. Yeah, a reason why.
Okay.
Yeah.
And does that maximum basically put it up to what I mean, it sounds like we were lowering about 20%. Does that maximum kind of put it to where we currently are?
Pretty much.
Pretty much?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're not ever going to go over, you know, we're going to reduce down to become more industry standard and current. Okay,
I
thank
mean,
you.
if you, to go over, it would be at your discretion to review based upon the study or the need by the applicant. But if they just like, no, we want to go with whatever review, then it'd be at the current standard. If they want a little more, that allows for up to 120% more. The idea was we wanted to avoid having each use go through a parking study as it's being reviewed, and can be more reviewed at a staff level. So.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alderman Lockmuller.
Were we, I guess under our current code, using gross leasable area to figure how many stalls,
Yes,
depending on the type of business?
yes.
And now we're talking about converting to gross floor area.
Well, it was in several areas, and there was you can use one or the other, so now we're just proposing let's simplify it and use one. You could have, if an applicant wanted to get more exact, they could do the leasable where they just measure the inside of the wall space and exclude certain things. Now we're just kind of going with a more simplified, because in general, developers don't always know the tenant mix or the square footage. They just kind of have a big box of, you know, the overall square footage.
We got a retail space like a Home Depot, and with the floor area, you're doing interior wall to interior walls. But if you got like a shipping area and places where the customer doesn't go, that's getting included in needing parking.
That was also being included in the prior applicant, in the prior, it was both included. Gross leasable floor area and gross floor area was pretty close to the same. You can exclude stairwells and mechanical rooms, but loading areas were included, so.
And then on some of the retail area, I'm starting to notice that they're putting in stuff for online pickup. And then you got specialized parking. Of course, we've got our ADA and, you know, things for employee of the month and everything. I find myself parking in the next jurisdiction usually. But, I mean, are those code, or are they just things that the retail establishment just adds on it?
I think that has been added, especially for COVID. That was seen more often. Generally, I would say we would want to review those if it's a whole new development and they're making modifications to the parking lot to provide for that. We would like to review that. But the existing ones were pretty much added as a reflection of COVID.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. We'll take this up for a second read at the next meeting. Brings us down to resolution number 1465. And Ms.
I'll take that.
City Administrator Conde.
Thank you, Mayor Dimmitt. We are bringing this Construction Manager Advisor On-Call Professional Services Agreement and Task Order Number 1 with Navigate Building Solutions to the attention of the board for consideration. You may know that Mayor Dimmitt has scheduled a visioning session scheduled for the month of October, where the board will take on discussion regarding Brentwood Boulevard corridor, the town center sub-area plan. A number of properties have been identified for review, and the city would like to engage Navigate to help us in that effort so that we are able to bring productive discussion for the board at that visioning session. So this is for a construction manager advisor on-call professional services task order number 1.
Can we get a motion for approval of resolution 1465?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Alderman Waggy.
Since this is a visioning thing that we're going to have in the future, I mean, how is Navigate going to prepare for that? They're going to basically come up with contingencies and try and anticipate the kind of visioning that we're going to do with this.
So the board will have a visioning session based on what you want the town center to look like. And there are specific properties that are under consideration to make that happen. So we will engage Navigate, because they have done this for other entities, to look at what could possibly be located on those properties and what the cost for construction would be. And that would give the board better information to give city staff direction on what the next steps would be.
But the intent is that they would do that before the visioning session.
Exactly.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Okay. We'll take a vote on passage of resolution number 1460. Do we have somebody else? No? Passage on resolution 1465. Roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
No.
Alderwoman Tice?
No.
Alderman Weggie?
No.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder?
Yes.
Alderman Erger?
Yes.
Motion carries by a vote of 5 to 3.
Thank you. This brings us down to bill number 6475. Can we get a first read by title only, please? Mr. City Attorney.
Yes. Bill number 6475, an ordinance of the City of Brentwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to enter into and execute an agreement between the City of Brentwood, Missouri and the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District, and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you. And is Dan presenting on this?
I'll
You'll?
take that.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Damon. At the Public Works Committee meeting last week, staff, engineers from MSD talked about the CSO Mary Avenue project that reduces basement backup and sewer overflows. They have construction projects starting in 2026, and they requested, MSD, that the city put together a letter that states what their requirements would be. For instance, compensation for trees, making certain that the city's trail that was just constructed, Dorothy Parkway, is preserved, and that there's continues to be pedestrian safety for members of our community that access the tunnel to the Brentwood Park. So we have put together a list of items for MSD's consideration. And some of this were suggestions that staff have been deliberating on since April of this year. We shared most of this with the Public Works Committee. I did not hear back from MSD until after 4 this afternoon, which is why I included it in board docs rather late. So if the board feels that more time is needed to review what we are presenting, this certainly can be deferred to the 18th of September. And I will just go through what's in the letter. Notice to the city for the Rogers Parkway that there be approximately 60 to 90 days prior notice before disturbing Rogers Parkway to the city, that MSD be required to establish secure safety parameter fencing to ensure Brentwood residents continue to have a safe and secure access to Rogers Parkway. Also, that MSD will provide a 4-foot strip outside the construction area to accommodate a temporary 3-foot trail. Also, that MSD's contractor shall give the city of Brentwood a 30-day written notice before new sections or block-by-block work commences in Brentwood. And then there is a list of all the streets in Ward 1, Ward 3, and Ward 4 that will be impacted by this construction project. Also, 30-day notice of all road closures, traffic coordination, and that there be a traffic and signage plan developed by the contractor presented to the city. Contractor will also submit plan for construction worker parking in a location other than on residential streets, provide a 30-day sequential restoration schedule, and private property restoration, adoption of a traffic plan, compliance of the dust control per city ordinance. They have asked us to provide specific chapter code, chapter section in the city's municipal code for the dust control, compliance of the pavement replacement. They've also asked us to be a little bit more specific in that, and so we can reference the code as well. Adherence to the city's construction hours, and then the project timeline, and then the compensation loss of trees. Part of what we're seeking clarification from MSD late this afternoon was that they're agreeing to a total of 216,000. When we talked about this at the Public Works Committee, it was conveyed to the Public Works Committee that should MSD want to further negotiate some of the points that are in here, this document can be amended, but they're requiring that this be adopted by September 8th so that it can be provided to their contractor.
Okay. Any questions? Alderman Gould.
I guess the question that I have is, how can this be deferred to the 18th if they need it by at least this first draft by the 8th?
They did not get back with me till after 4 this afternoon, which was why I uploaded it late. But if the board has had a chance to review it and is comfortable with what you're reading, then
Yeah, I mean,
we would entertain a motion for
I
approval.
mean, I think this covers a lot of the things that we discussed at the special Public Works meeting. The other areas that I'm little concerned about is I'd like to have a little bit better understanding from them on the process of boring. They're going to be boring under Rogers Parkway. What kind of noise and vibration are we expecting in those? Because those are highly residential, bordered an area. It's not like we had a lot of people talking about the boring that was done by MSD when it wasn't even very close to some homes. There was some that were close, that they could hear it and feel it. And I guess, as far as our noise ordinances and things, I would also want to know what do we need to put in here about existing condition of people's private property, things of that nature. But if that can come at...
It can come on the 18th.
The
It's not
18th.
addressed in here. And I think they addressed some of that at the meeting, that they will do a pre-assessment and then after they do the boring, but that's not reflected in here. So if you consider an amendment on the 18th, then that would be reflected in here at that time.
Okay. I think Brandon had some...
Alderman Weggie?
Yeah, I mean, so when we talked to Public Works, one issue that came out and really stuck out to me was the whole neighborhood that will have only traffic access on the Brentwood Boulevard, which is going to be impossible to take a left because they're right by the Litzinger street light there. I know it says that they have to submit a traffic plan, but does that have the teeth necessary? Can they submit a traffic plan even though we don't think it's viable and they've met the requirements here?
I would like to think it would go much further than that. If they submit a traffic plan for the city to react and respond to it. So if we counter and say more needs to be done, I understand your question that because it's not included in this letter, do they not have to abide by it?
Right.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I would imagine, given our relationship with MSD, they would be negotiable to making it work. If you think about the swim club, Whitehall Avenue
I try not to.
project, that was brutal. I understand that. But they did work with the city. So I think we can provide additional language when we amend this on the 18th, because those are 2 points that I did not include in here, so we can make those changes.
And then the other thing that seems missing is, so this project touches both of the elementary schools. I mean, it is right on the boundary as well as major approach paths of the kids walking to these schools. And I think maybe something in there, I don't know what that is. I mean, I feel like that's more than a traffic plan. That is more than adhering to our construction hours. I think it's, maybe you have to stop working for 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes at night, just so that there aren't kids running around. This is going to go for 3.5 years, right? So it's not a month. And I think we just got to be more rigorous as these kids are going to be all over the neighborhood, because they're going to be all over the neighborhood.
We can add those 3 items in there, and we'll bring that back on the 18th.
Thanks.
Anyone else? So is there a need for a second read for this?
Is it?
You've got first and second on here.
Yes.
Aren't we coming back on the 18th?
Yes. Well,
But they want something by the 8th?
They want something by the 8th, so I would,
But if we have something by the, if the board approves this, they can always amend it?
exactly.
At the next
exactly.
meeting.
Right, so first reading on this one, and then we'll bring an amendment on the 18th. First and second reading on this one.
Okay, well, you heard that. No, Alderwoman Sims.
I mean, can we unilaterally amend it? I mean, or do they have to agree? I mean,
Well,
if
we
this
will
isn't-
work with them to make sure the language that is in there.
But if they don't accept it, what's the result of our amendment? It won't be amended, right? Inherent in that is that the amendment would be mutually agreed.
But these are items that were discussed already, so it was just not reflected in here. So I would imagine they would support.
I mean, this
those three
project
items that were
isn't
just
happening in years. What is the prejudice of waiting 2 weeks?
This is going, I believe, in a contract document that's being released.
Right, on something that's not going to happen for years. I don't, what is the difference of, what is a 2 week, I know I've been gone, but like, what is a 2 week, what is the prejudice of a 2 week delay?
I'm only repeating what was told at the Public Works Committee.
Alderwoman Tice.
So I have not worked as closely with MSD as the city staff has, but from the Public Works meeting, I was pretty comfortable with them wanting this letter now so that they could talk to potential contractors, and they were really agreeable that amendments after that, we would just revise our letter and give that to them, and they would agree to that. So I'm comfortable with the approach that of a second read now, and then we can add things to it at the next meeting. I think we
Well,
already have a motion on the floor.
no, we don't have a motion yet for second read. Can we get one so we can discuss the motion for second read?
Motion for second read.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that? So all you're voting on right now is for a second read of this bill. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries the count of 7 yeas and 1 nay. So with that, second read by title only, please.
For second reading, Bill number 6475, an ordinance of the City of Brentwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to enter into and execute an agreement between the City of Brentwood, Missouri and Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Okay, can we get a motion to perfect bill number 6475 in the ordinance form?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Discussion. Alderwoman Tice.
Would it be appropriate to add language to the letter saying something to the effect of the Board of Aldermen is in agreement with the language that's here, but intends to reflect on it and vote on, may add additional items at the September 18th, whatever our meeting is,
That'd be the 18th.
the 18th. So if that could actually be a bullet point in the letter, that might
can
clarify
include that.
things.
Yeah, I think the concern here is, and so we're going to be looking to the city attorney for how best to handle this, is the concern of Alderwoman Sims, expressed by Alderwoman Sims and Alderwoman Tice, that if this becomes perfected tonight, what recourse do we have? What incentive is there on MSD's part to accept any amendments after this becomes effective, notwithstanding their statements that they would entertain amendments? Is there anything that could be put in this?
I'm really not totally sure about how to answer that because, I mean, I think it follows that if we're agreeing to something, an attached document, then, you know, the city could be bound by that, but, you know, based on other people's experiences of working with MSD, it sounds like they're amenable to, you know, I'm really not sure.
So it's a matter of faith,
I mean, that's,
is what I'm hearing.
I don't see how we could, as a practical matter, put like in bold type, subject to change at a later date, whether MSD likes it or not. I mean, I want to go along, get along this. I'm just, I'm concerned that.
Everything is subject to change when we bring it back to the Board of Aldermen.
Okay, so then what is the rush then on having this letter go out if it can be, if it's so malleable to change? I mean, how can a third party rely on something that could be changed materially at a later date?
Who is the third party?
Well, you're saying, what you said earlier is that this needed to go out to bid, this needed to go out.
But that's MSD saying this to the Public Works Committee. You know, I guess in a legal sense, what was it? you said faith, trust us?
Faith, right?
Maybe that doesn't apply. I mean, I would like to say that when we started working with MSD in 2015, you know, we've come a long way. So when they come before this body and say, we would like to have this by the 8th, and if you would like to make additional changes to it, at some point, we've got to trust them at their word. I can't say more than that.
I just don't, from a drafting approach, like, why pass it if we're going to amend it later on? And why, if they've been so easy to work with, they should be understanding about a 2-week delay.
But their timelines are different. That's why.
But no one's putting a shovel into the ground in years. It seems like a lot of effort to vote and approve something only to have it after the fact be potentially changed. I mean, if I'm missing something here, I mean, why not just put forward the document that's?
Would the Board of Aldermen entertain a special meeting?
No, I don't think there's prejudice in 10 days. Like
No,
the
because
8th.
it will take 24 hours to make this change, so that we can bring it back and not have to wait till the 18th and still meet their deadline of September 8th.
But what
Because
is
the changes were just identified tonight.
What is the result of waiting until the 18th? That's the question that hasn't been answered.
They're meeting with potential contractors.
Okay, and if we present this letter and that the MSD gets this letter to potential contractors, and it says, hey, by the way, friends, it's subject to change, what good is that going to be to these potential contractors? Why not just have at least a final form as it can be, and we can vote on it on the 18th?
I don't have any additional response to your questions. I don't know.
Other than the convenience of wanting to present it to potential contractors, is there other prejudice in waiting until the 18th?
Alderman Gould, are you? I'm sorry, I'm not interrupting you.
I don't, is there, what is the additional prejudice?
No, I don't think we have that information. I think that's what I'm hearing from the city
Exactly.
administrator.
I've said everything I know.
We don't have that information, and I think your point is very well taken, and that is, this board's not been presented with the information of what effect is there on MSD if the board decides not to take this up tonight. And as I see it, the concern, well stated again by Alderwoman Sims and by Alderwoman Tice, is on the one hand, you approve this, so in theory, how can you then amend it? The other is, why does this need to be taken up tonight? Especially in light of the fact if this is subject to be amended, what reliance can the third parties have on this agreement by the city? So I think those are the two options, the two concerns or arguments. Alderman Legge.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate us trying to be the only entity that we deal with that tries to hit deadlines when people ask for them. So I do appreciate us trying that. But I would hope that after the 14th, open house that MSD has, that they are hearing input from residents and making changes that would then also be going on to those contractors as well. So this 8th date is a little worrisome, honestly, because that means, are they not going to incorporate change? Are they not going to incorporate that feedback from our residents on the 14th? So that makes me question it a little bit. And I feel like, we got burned on swim club land and all that. They had to come to us because they were asking for something that was not in the original plan. Before that, we were getting urgent call from residents as they were knocking down 150-year-old trees with no notification to the city. So I didn't have a good experience with that, and I think we're probably only getting a one shot. I don't know how much water this letter is going to hold, but I think we'll probably have one shot to get it into them. So I think if there's any way we can get it right, it's worth waiting.
Okay. Anyone else? Alderman Gould.
The only, I don't know if it's necessary or not, because obviously you're going to make some amendments, but it seems like on Alderman Wegge's concerns with the traffic coordination, traffic plans, seems to me that we could just simply amend, contractor will submit to the city of Brentwood for approval, traffic and signage plan. If we put that in the bullets, then that sort of states that they don't just the act of submitting the plan isn't enough. We have to have an approval to the traffic plan. So I don't know if that helps with at least that one. These other things that I added, obviously, those are ones that we can't just write on the fly here. So.
Anyone else? Okay, so it's in front of you right now is a motion to perfect bill number 6475 into ordinance form. Yeah, Alderman.
If we don't perfect it, does that mean that the bill fails and then it doesn't come back on the 18th? Or do we need to,
Would we need to have a motion for reconsideration if it fails tonight? A motion for reconsideration. We had that at the last meeting, I believe, and so we're somewhat experts on this. I can't remember which party has to bring the motion, but we can take that up if, I have no idea how the board's gonna vote on this, but that's, to answer your question, that's how it would be handled. Alderwoman Tice.
And then, Madam City Administrator, if this is like a date that has to be done, presumably you could call a special meeting between now and the 8th if this fails. I mean, 3 days from now, but.
Okay, and today's just the 5th.
One more clarification, if I may?
Sure.
All right, so as the letter stands now, what changes will be made if this does pass tonight and we send it in?
I believe I heard 4. Stop working in the school zone in the morning and the afternoon. At least, I think you said 15 minutes. Then a pre-assessment for blasting, post-assessment for blasting, identify the requirements for that, and then develop a one-way traffic that is acceptable to the city for access to the Litzinger neighborhood. Then this last one, contractor will submit to the city of Brentwood for approval a traffic plan.
And the additional one was the noise, making sure that noise ordinances are followed
Right.
with any boring that they're doing.
There's a total of 5.
Alderwoman Sims.
I mean, couldn't they just as easily have say, hey, guys, this letter didn't pass, but these are the things that are bandying about, and it's coming up for a vote on the 18th? I mean, I'd like to get this right. I don't like feeling like my back's to the wall, particularly when no one's sticking a shovel in the ground for years. I mean, we're going to be living with this for a long time, and someone will roll this tape from tonight.
Well, again, I think the city administrator has stated in response to Alderwoman Tice's question, if this board does not pass this ordinance tonight, then presumably she would hear from MSD and the need to have this done, and we could work on trying to get this all taken care of before September 8th. Alderman Legge.
Yeah, I'm going to vote for it. I mean, I prefer the wait, but also I think, having seen this and looked at it for a long time, I think if those changes are made, then that's probably 98% of what we would do, final approval anyway. So I'm going to vote yes.
Anyone else? Okay, roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
No.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Alderman Weggie?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
No.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder?
Yes.
Alderman Erger?
Yes.
By a vote of 6-2, Bill 6471 will become ordinance 5102.
Great, thank you. That brings us down to citizen comments. Anybody in the public care to address the board? Once again, now is the time to do so. You'll be given up to 3 minutes. And if we have no citizen comments, then we would like to go into closed session following tonight's meeting pursuant to 610.021 subsection 3 of the revised statutes of Missouri. Can we get a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Alderman Weggie?
Yep.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder?
Yes.
Alderman Erker?
Yes.
Motion carries by a vote of 8 to 0.
Great, thank you. Seeing no further business, this meeting is adjourned.